is neat.
Look at all this space.
There's a lot of room for cookies in here.
Where do you get a house like this?
We get ours at LNC Homes in Ogden.
What a pretty potty.
Does this kind of house cost a lot of money?
No. Plus, financing, delivery, and setup are all included in one price.
Does LNC Homes have a lot of houses like this?
Yes, and you can choose custom features from unlimited floor plans.
Wow, a window in the ceiling. Radical.
LNC Homes. Home ownership made truly easy.
She never meant to fall in love.
You're a spy, Mr. Leland.
And you've seen too many movies, Miss Voss.
He never meant to put her in danger.
I will quit if you don't let me go.
I'll miss you.
Now, he must risk his life
I've got to get her out of there.
to save hers. A first-rate thriller rates Gene Shalit. Michael Douglas and Melanie Griffith heat up the screen. Shining Through, rated R. Now playing at theaters everywhere.
Tuesday at 10 on News Center 13.
Good morning. Working into the late hours, the House has authorized a formal investigation into whether or not the 1980 Reagan-Bush campaign conspired with Iran to delay the release of American hostages. The lawmakers' debate was heated and resulted in a vote that fell primarily along party lines today, Thursday, February the 6th, 1992.
From NBC News, this is Today with Bryant, Gumbel, Catherine Couric, and Joe Garagiola.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Thursday morning, a day on which Katie and I are welcoming Joe back into the studio. You take more time off.
I had to go see. It was a reunion of the 42 Cardinals. Whitey Kurowski and Terry Moore and Max Lanier. I had a great time.
You Slaughter? You have to get up and speak.
Oh, me? Go to a banquet and not speak?
I figured as much. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Straight ahead in this half hour, we're going to move on to health care, now a major issue on the campaign trail. We're going to look at the Republicans, the president's plan, and also the Democratic plan, too. We've got more of your special conversation with...
That's right, part 2 of my interview with David Letterman.
Now celebrating 10 years on the air. Is this special tonight?
Yes, it is tonight at 9:30.
Gene Shalit's going to be in the Critics' Corner checking out the new Sean Connery movie, Medicine Man, and our Who Killed JFK series takes a look at the Cuban connection. So we have a busy morning ahead. Let's start at the news desk. Faith Daniels. Faith, good morning.
Good morning, Bryant, Katie, and Joe. Good morning, everyone. A congressional task force is going to take a close look at reports of an international scheme involving U.S. hostages, the government of Iran, and the 1980 Reagan-Bush campaign. For 6 months, Democrats have been demanding a probe of charges that campaign officials schemed to delay the releases of U.S. hostages until after the 1980 election. Republicans have dismissed the charges as political paranoia.
And many liberals have never gotten over the victory of Ronald Reagan. He is a usurper who has wrenched from their grasp an entitlement, and he couldn't have won but for foul play. And so here we are with October surprise.
If the allegations are proven true, corrective steps will need to be taken. If the allegations are true, we would do a disservice to the country if we fail to pursue an inquiry. If the allegations are false, we would do a disservice to those who have been accused of misconduct if we fail to go forward.
Last night's vote to launch the probe was 217 to 192, virtually along party lines. Jim Miklashevsky is standing by this morning at the White House. Has there been any reaction there yet, Jim?
Well, Republicans at the White House accuse the Democrats of playing election year politics with all this. They say the charges have been thoroughly investigated, and Bush himself has denied any involvement in any such scheme or October surprise.
The president goes to Cleveland today to unveil his health care plan. You previewed it yesterday. Any reaction?
Well, no surprises there either. Republicans are for it, Democrats are against it, but both sides are under election year pressure to come up with something.
Let them know that you want this package passed.
The president was out hawking his health plan Wednesday.
My plan ensures that people can find health care, choose health care, afford health care, and keep health care.
Bush's plan calls for $100 billion in vouchers for the poor and tax breaks for the middle class to help pay for health insurance. To pay for it all, the plan would put a cap on increases in Medicare and Medicaid spending. Bush also wants to create a health insurance pool to reduce the costs for small business firms and wants malpractice reform to cut malpractice premiums for doctors. Democrats already claim the president's plan falls far short.
Anything less than cost containment and full access to coverage is a hoax.
The Democrats would shift more of the cost onto business and the wealthy. Republicans predict that would cost jobs.
You want to remember that the Democrat plan is called pay or play. It should be called pay or play and then pray.
But the American people don't want political bickering. They want better health care and expect Washington to help provide it.
We seem to find ways to wage war. We should be able to find a way to keep the living healthy.
And this is 1 year when political pressure may actually force Congress and the White House to come up with a plan. It's called re-election insurance. Faith?
All right. Thank you, Jim Miklaszewski. Secretary of State Baker is taking an increasingly tougher stance on Israel's request for American loan guarantees. In return, the U.S. wants a moratorium on the building of Jewish settlements in occupied territories. At the same time, there's growing debate in Israel about the peace process and growing support for giving up land for peace. Keith Miller reports.
Jewish settlers on the West Bank are becoming more militant in expressing their right to live here. Last night, the protest was against a Palestinian opposed to Israeli occupation.
What we are doing is pressuring the government into taking action. That's what we are doing, and we will continue to do so.
And they continue to build new settlements. There is a building frenzy on the West Bank driven by fear that the government may accept a freeze on settlements in exchange for $10 billion in U.S. loan guarantees. Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir supports settlements and said in Hebrew, the U.S. cannot dictate to Israel what to do with the money. Sensitive is the best way to describe the settlement issue. Some Israelis claim a biblical right to the West Bank. Others say the land provides security.
Israel will not survive. Very simple. Very simple. If we give up this land, there will be no homeland for the Jewish people.
It is a view held with a passion, but not held by all Israelis. In a recent poll, 61% of the people said they are willing to give up most of the West Bank in exchange for peace. Keith Miller, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Medical science is closer to a treatment or even a cure for muscular dystrophy. Ken Pierce reports that genetic research has now led to an important breakthrough.
By isolating genes, parts of genes, and even chromosomes, scientists here in the Netherlands, England, Wales, and Canada have found that a segment of chromosome 19 is larger than it should be in people who suffer from myotonic dystrophy, one of the most common forms of muscular dystrophy.
Scientists here at the Human Genome Research Center are excited about this discovery. They say now that they've identified the cause of a disease, they're one step closer to finding a cure.
If anything can cure myotonic dystrophy, understanding the thing that causes it is the most likely, but it doesn't guarantee it.
This is really exciting to me. It makes me even more optimistic that maybe, hopefully, within my lifetime, we will find something to help me deal with this.
I think the biggest impact is going to be an earlier detection of the disease process. However, it's a step in the right direction towards finding an effective treatment or a cure.
Mapping 24 types of chromosomes found in human cells and decoding the information will take years. But one breakthrough on one disease, they say, makes it worthwhile.
Kent Pierce for NBC News.
In Mobile, Alabama on Wednesday, the jury in a murder trial returned a reduced verdict of criminally negligent homicide. Outraged members of the victim's family jumped over the courtroom barriers and went after the 15-year-old defendant. The juvenile defendant was struck in the face. Two of the victim's relatives were arrested. The DA called the whole thing barbaric. 7:08 now. That's the latest.
The DA was being kind. Thank you, Faith. Willard has moved locations. He was in San Antonio at the rodeo. It's a rodeo down there.
Rodeo?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was the Drive. What do you want? Let's go. He's out in Omaha right now. Boys Town. Willard, good morning.
Listen, you're into Gucci and Rodeo Drive. That's near Fluid Drive, which is Hydromatic Drive is right around the corner. I am in beautiful Nebraska. You want to look for a good place to live? The people out here love you. They take good care of you. 75-pound steaks cost 15 cents. You can't beat the price. And we are in Boys Town this morning celebrating, the second time I've been here, my pleasure. We are celebrating the 75th anniversary. Back in 1917, Father Flanagan brought the first boy here, and we'll talk about that. Now it's Boy and Girl Town because this time we have the first female mayor. A young lady is the mayor of Boys Town. You'll meet her this morning, along with some other good people like Father Val, who is a prince, a gentleman, a jewel. How about a couple of birthdays this morning, or at least one? We have the picture for one, and we had an extra that just came in a little late. Elsie McCauley of Hanford, California. Pretty as a picture, 100 years old today. And she's had children, how many? 5 sons that served in the service since World War II. We wish her happy birthday. Now, Beryl Schumann, I have to read this off the cue card, 100 from Lawton, Oklahoma. We wish her a very happy birthday. We don't have her picture. We do have a weather picture for you. The best news in the world, that great 4-letter word, R-A-I-N, rain. Southern California, up to 2-3 inches of it. And Central California will get some rain as well. Some of that rain is far north as San Francisco. A little fog in Seattle this morning. And a lot of rain, too. That rain that hit Texas yesterday, moving in to the southwest with gale flags flying on the Carolina coast, up to 2 inches of rain north and South Carolina. Here's what's happening in your world, even as we speak.
Well, today we start a cooling trend that's going to last right on through the weekend. Partly cloudy skies today in central Iowa. 41 for the high, winds out of the northwest at 8 to 20 miles an hour. Then for tonight, cooling things off under clear skies to 20 degrees.
That's all for right now. We'll have a good time this morning. You stay with us, and here's Katie.
Thanks, Willard. On Close Up this morning, the Bush health plan. As we heard in the news a moment ago, the president announces his health plan later today, which the administration says will enable 90 million Americans to buy basic health care through a system of tax credits and deductions. We're going to ask a couple of experts about how they feel about the plan. Dr. Philip Alper is an internist and medical writer, and this morning he's at his office in Burlingame, California. David West is executive director of Washington State Citizen Action, and this morning he's at our NBC affiliate in Seattle, King TV. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Alper, let me begin with you. What troubles you most about this plan?
Well, I think I see good things and bad things in the plan. The red light to me was the question of taking money away from Medicare in order to pay for some other things. I'm not sure that Medicare could afford that.
The administration officials, however, insist that the plan will not hurt Medicare beneficiaries. You believe it will?
I think that it depends. Some of the hospitals in the inner cities, some of the teaching hospitals, have pointed out that the money that might be taken away from them might not be made up in their own local hospitals because there's no guarantee that the people who will get these benefits will be the ones who will replace those lost funds. There's a tendency, I believe, in Washington to assume that if an overall system stays in balance, then everything is fine. And you and I know that that's not true on the local level.
You said you saw some good things in the plan as well. Can I assume that malpractice reform, cutting malpractice premiums for doctors is a positive step in your view?
Yes, I think so. I don't, that's not the most exciting thing that I see.
What is?
The concept of a return to what's called community rating, meaning that to make insurance fair, to spread the risk among large groups of people. What we're seeing in practice is the devastation of the insurance industry by having what they call cherry picking. Every carrier going after people who are likely to be well, where they will be able to make profits on premiums, and then leave the sick people to somebody else. If we can combat that, I think that would be a major step forward.
Okay, David West, how about you? What do you feel positive about, if anything, when it comes to this health plan?
Well, I think that we're glad to see that that George Bush is finally taking the health care issue as a serious issue. I think what concerns us about it is it seems like he's still out of touch with where the American people are on the health care issue. I talked to my next-door neighbor last night, and I asked her to see her health care bills for last year, and she showed me this file of dozens and dozens of health care bills, only some of which were paid for by the insurance companies. And it seems like what's missing from this plan is that they're not taking the cost issue seriously. They're not dealing with the major concern of Americans, and that's the skyrocketing health care costs. They're not dealing with insurance waste, and they're not coming up with a plan that guarantees coverage to people. And I think that's where the folks out here in Washington State, that's what their concerns are.
What about this proposed $3,750 tax credit to help the poor and a tax deduction up to that amount for the middle class? Do you see that helping?
Well, it's really robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's taking money away from senior citizens on the Medicare program, from the Medicaid program, and giving it to people, putting them back in the hands of the insurance industry, where they'll be buying inadequate policies And in a couple of years, the rates will be right back up there. He will not have dealt with the fundamental problem of cost control.
What about national health insurance?
Well, I think that's something that we see is inevitable, and we see that the voters out here in Washington State are strongly in favor of it. And if this is the best, this plan is the best that George Bush can come up with this year, he's going to be in real trouble with the voters out here in November, because they want some plan. National plan, I think, is what the voters out here have said that they would prefer the best, that gives them guaranteed access, that gives them strong cost controls, and does something about the incredible waste in the insurance industry.
Dr. Alper, we only have a few seconds left, but you do not support national health insurance. Why?
Not at this very time. I think the American public is used to health care that is too good. Most of the places that have had national health insurance have taken a big jump forward. We have a very solid base of insurance, and I think what we lose at the outset would probably be too much for people to accept it now. Plus, the state of the economy probably couldn't afford that amount of infusion of money at this moment.
Okay. Dr. Philip Alper, David West, thank you both.
Thank you.
The administration's health care plan is not the only one. Bryant has more on that.
Well, Katie, long before the president saw political opportunity in it, the Democrats, both those running for president and the leaders in Congress, saw health care reform as a major issue. Our science correspondent, Bob Bazell, has a look at some of the various Democratic plans. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Brian. It's obvious that this is becoming one of the major differences between President Bush and the Democrats in this election year. And although the details of health care reform can be very complicated, President Bush wants to give people tax breaks and let the current system stay pretty much in place, while most Democrats want a major overhaul of the system.
All the Democratic candidates for president and the Democratic leadership in Congress share two basic goals for health care: to ensure that all Americans have access to at least basic care, and to implement a system to stop the wildly escalating costs.
Healthcare costs is the most important thing that we've got to deal with healthcare reform. George Bush is protecting the income and the profits of the insurance companies, and as a result, our costs are going up. The Democrats are saying they're willing to take on the insurance lobby so that we can get costs affordable for America's families.
Our current health care system is failing millions of our families.
Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell and several colleagues have introduced a bill that relies on the concept called pay or play. All employers would either provide health insurance or pay into a fund that would finance a new health insurance plan. That plan would be available for everyone who does not get coverage at work. The federal government would define a basic set of benefits that it would apply to private insurers as well as the new national health insurance plan. Bill Clinton's plan for health care reform is quite similar to the Mitchell bill.
We could cover every American with the money we're spending right now if we just had the courage to demand insurance reform, slash health care bureaucracies, if we followed the lead of other nations in controlling the unnecessary spread of technology, stopping drug prices from going up at 3 times the rate of inflation, and forcing the people who send the bills to sit down with the people who pay the bills and planning out what we're going to spend on health care from year to year.
Bob Kerrey proposes even greater change. He would set up a national health insurance program to replace most private insurance. A series of new taxes, including a 5% payroll tax, would finance the plan, which would have a total spending limit. Kerrey says the new taxes would simply change the way we spend health care money, and most families would end up paying less.
It is not a new spending program. For a $25,000 a year individual in the United States of America, they're already paying $500 in taxes, $600 in out-of-pocket expenditures, and $900 in premiums. Now, they will pay somewhat higher in tax premiums, they will pay less in out-of-pocket deductibles, and they will pay no premiums for a savings of $800 a year.
Although he has offered almost no specifics, Jerry Brown also endorses a single national health insurance plan.
That would eliminate the intermediary role of 1,500 insurance companies that just of its complexity, by its complexity, is costing this nation tens of billions of dollars.
Paul Tsongas endorses a concept called managed competition. The government would require that everyone be covered and set basic standards. Then it would be up to employers to decide which plan to purchase.
For the first time, you bring into the system the notion that somebody has an incentive to bring down costs. Government's job is to set the standard, to make the uniform applications, to have reporting that's uniform.
Tom Harkin says he would gather leaders of industry and labor and develop a bill on health care.
Number one, it's going to cover everyone and leave no one out. Secondly, no pre-existing clauses to keep people out. Third, it's going to have prevention and keeping people healthy as the foundation of our healthcare system in America. Fourth, it's going to cover long-term care. Fifth, it's going to cut down all the paperwork and the red tape and everything else that you got to sign.
Few of Harkin's fellow Democrats would argue with those goals, but those who have come up with detailed plans know how difficult it can be. A lot of details there, but by November, there's going to be one Democratic plan, and the candidate is going to have it versus the Bush plan.
Let's just make it clear, no one is asking for a nationalized health plan, right?
That's right. Doctors are not going to end up working for the government under any of these plans. The issue is how much do we rely on private insurance companies, and how much do we rely on the marketplace to set prices?
And as was true of the tax issue, it sounds like the fairness issue is coming to the fore.
As always.
Always. Bob, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We're coming up on 7:20 on this Thursday morning, back after a break. This is Today on NBC.
Every week, we go shopping for the same super boring stuff. Can't we try something new for dinner? Like eggs. I mean, there's over 240 ways to cook them. And they have every vitamin, except C. Besides, a kid can only take so much casserole. What do I look like? A dweeb? We've got to tell our moms we're not going to take it anymore.
Oh, remind me to buy some eggs, dear.
I knew she'd see it my way. The incredible edible egg.
Brought to you by the Iowa Egg Council.
Brad Starr talks about the all-weather consistency of encapsulated, timed-release Microtech herbicide on his soybeans.
Microtech has given me the control through the variety of weather that Mother Nature has thrown at us.
So how about versatility, Brad?
We use the Microtech product whether we're in no-till or in our reduced tillage program, either way.
Encapsulated, timed-release Microtech works in any weather. Just ask Brad.
Control is best because of...
And at the State House, 21 House Democrats say the state income tax should be one simple calculation, a flat 32% of federal taxes. The lawmakers say it is not only simple, but would lower taxes for the middle class. And in Cleveland this morning, President Bush unveils his health care plan. More local news in the forecast at 8:25.
We're back now. It's 8 o'clock. It's Thursday morning, February 6th of '92. And straight ahead in this hour, we'll continue our series this week on who killed JFK. This morning, we focus on one of the more persistent of the assassination theories, the one that holds that the Cubans did it.
Has stripped the Cuban people of their freedom.
We're back in Studio 3B on this Thursday morning. I'm Bryant Gumbel, here with Katie Couric and Joe Garagiola. Faith Daniels over at the news desk. She's going to bring us up to date in just a moment.
Also, Bryant, we've got another discouraging report this morning on how well our children stack up against children in other countries when it comes to science and math. And later in the hour, entertainment reporter Joe Rappaport checks out Michael Jackson's plans for a world tour. Joe?
And Dr. Holly Atkinson is going to clear up some of the confusion over kids and low-fat diets. All kinds of confusion on that.
All right. Kids, I think
too little fat, not good.
Too little fat is not good?
Because they miss the vitamins. And
right, exactly. If they're on too stringent of a diet, it's not good for them.
We don't have that problem. Let's go to the let's go to the news.
For yourself.
Let's go to the
Will you?
news. That's great. Now, here's Faith.
Thanks, Bryant. Republicans are crying foul this morning after a vote in the House last night approving an investigation into the so-called October surprise. By a vote of 217 to 192, the House formally authorized a probe into allegations that the 1980 Reagan-Bush campaign conspired to delay the release of 52 U.S. hostages in Iran. Democrats say the investigation is necessary. Republicans are calling the vote partisan politics. President Bush says his new health care plan will help millions of poor and middle-class Americans get affordable health insurance. The plan he'll unveil today in Cleveland would give poor people vouchers worth $3,700 to buy health insurance. Middle-class Americans would get an equivalent amount in tax deductions. Critics say the president's plan will not bring down the cost of health care or help the uninsured get insurance. The cost of providing health insurance to employees is often too high for many small businesses. But in Washington state, there's a small business owner who says it's wrong to deny it. Linda Byron reports.
Only about half of the small businesses in Washington state offer medical insurance to their workers. But at this hardware store in Seattle, every worker is covered if he wants to be. Owner Ron Lewis says he considers it a basic right.
Well, it's a philosophical question for me. I believe that everyone deserves to be well in this country, and that the small part that we play, it's important.
Look,
No one knows that better than 65-year-old Dick Scheuer. 3 years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer. Scheuer is lucky. His employer's insurance carrier pays for treatments that can cost anywhere from a few $100s to a few $1,000s a month. But Scheuer knows that if he ever lost his job, and with it his insurance, it's unlikely another carrier would touch him. Medicine's miraculous new technology means doctors can keep patients alive much longer. This MRI scanner can find tumors and other problems in the body, making it easier for doctors to diagnose everything from cancer to multiple sclerosis. But the technology has side effects: soaring healthcare costs, rising insurance premiums, and a growing population who can't afford even basic medical care. Linda Byron for NBC News, Seattle.
The U.S. Border Patrol has scrapped plans for a crackdown at its crossing near San Diego. Mexico now says it'll deal with the aliens rushing through traffic and illegally crossing into the United States. Bernard Gonzalez reports.
The San Ysidro port of entry has been called the busiest in the world. For the past month, agents have videotaped hundreds of illegal immigrants crossing into the U.S. under the noses of Mexican authorities. The migrants run from Mexico into San Diego border freeway traffic to avoid capture. Local law agencies have policies against chasing people on the highway because of safety. That policy was about to change for the Border Patrol when an agreement was struck with Mexican officials to stop the traffic dashes.
They have made a commitment to us that they will resolve the situation of alien staging south of the border crossing and then running up the southbound lanes of Interstate 5 to gain entry into the United States.
It didn't take long for the word to get out here on the street and for people to start changing their plans about how they were going to cross the border.
Near this fence painted with anti-border patrol and U.S. immigration policy slogans, people illegally bound for the U.S. plan strategy. In this case, one man acts as a decoy, while two others scale an 8-foot fence into the U.S. And whether they go through this port or over a fence, they say they'll get there. For NBC News, Bernard Gonzalez, San Ysidro.
5 people were killed in Madrid this morning when a car bomb exploded near a military vehicle. No one has claimed responsibility, but police believe it's the work of Basque separatists. There's also more violence in Northern Ireland. Early this morning, a bomb exploded in a Belfast bus, slightly injuring the driver. So far this year, 26 people have died in sectarian violence. Tom Pettit has more.
The Belfast killers are still at large, having evaded the entire British security force in Northern Ireland. This time it was mass murder at gunpoint. All the victims were Catholic, 4 men and a 15-year-old boy shot in cold blood. During the night, flowers of memoriam were delivered to the crime scene, a busy betting shop in South Belfast. The gunmen were Protestant terrorists, retaliating for an IRA bombing which killed 8 Protestants in January. Britain now has its largest force in Northern Ireland since the 1970s, but even that has not been able to stop the escalating sectarian violence.
It is critically important at a time like this for the community to keep its nerve.
But the community is very nervous.
If I do my visiting at night and a car slows down, its headlights dim, there's this terrible thought at the back of my mind. Is it my turn now?
Hopelessness. That would be the word. Hopelessness.
Northern Ireland has seen 27 people die in violence just since the first of the year. 27 murders, Catholic and Protestant. Tom Pettit, NBC News in London.
Medical researchers say they've found the genetic trigger for the most common adult form of muscular dystrophy. They hope their discovery will lead to a treatment and will help people avoid passing the problem on to their children. It's 8:06 now. That's the latest from here.
All right, Faith, thanks so very much. We're going to swing it on out to Omaha, Nebraska, one more time, where the folks in Nebraska this morning are celebrating a big win over Oklahoma State. But you must be hearing all about that at Boys Town, right?
No, I'm hearing all about the fact that Katie's mother came from this town.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
they're not the least bit concerned about that game.
She grew up in Sleepy Hollow, Willard, and she went to Benson High School. She was a Benson Bunny.
Hey, well,
Are they still the Benson Bunnies?
We're looking for the Benson Bunnies as soon as this show is over.
Okay.
You can bet I'll be in line. Hey, listen, they had to go out and shoot 112 polyesters to get one of these sweaters for me. But this, of course, is Father Flanagan's Boys Town 75th anniversary. We'll talk about that. I want you to meet some beautiful people in just a second who work here in a very unusual job that is so rewarding. Let's first of all do a birthday. We got some great birthday buddies this morning from Omaha. Take a look at our Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Hallmark card. Roy Riddell of Spring Green, Wisconsin is 106 years old, never missed voting for a president in his entire life. First president he voted for was William Howard Taft in 1908. Happy birthday to you. And we have, let's see, that's good. Clara Barty of Cincinnati, Ohio, the best hot dogs in America. 103 years old, pretty as a picture, and everybody loves her. She's got grandchildren and nieces and nephews all over the place. Quick check of the weather. Beautiful rain in Southern California. How sweet it is. Up to 2-3 inches of it. Temperatures will be in the 70s in southern Florida. That's about the warmest. And 10 to 20 degrees in New England. It remains cold up there. But the Plain States, here in Omaha, it's going to be about 50 today. In Omaha, it's going to be about 50 in Chicago. It's incredibly warm. Probably mildest they've ever had. Okay, some rain in the southeast today and some gale flags along the coast of North and South Carolina. Here's what's happening in your world even as we speak.
Well, today we start a cooling trend that's going to last right on through the weekend. Partly cloudy skies today in central Iowa. 41 for the high, winds out of the northwest at 8 to 20 miles an hour. Then for tonight, cooling things off under clear skies to 20 degrees.
Okay, we have Rick and Trish. I knew I'd get Arisa. I'll get it right in a minute. You know something that I did not know, that here on this campus at Boys Town, they have over 75 homes, and one of the most, if not the most important part, is to put the children in homes so they get family values. Is that right, Trish?
That's exactly right. We go ahead and we're like surrogate parents. We teach our kids family values. We teach them social skills that will help them, hopefully, to get along in life very well.
And Rick, how many children do you have?
We have 7 or 8 children in our home.
And all girls?
All girls.
That's right. Now, is there any problem with all the girls, with all the problems that they have individually, having all that number in one house? Does that create any problem?
Well, we teach them how to get along. We go ahead and we teach them skills called getting along skills, and we teach them how to go ahead and work out their problems, and it helps things run real smoothly.
And that's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm
very
sure
much
it
so.
Has to be one of the most rewarding of all the jobs.
Oh, it's very rewarding. It very is.
Well, we salute you and say how much we love Boys Town. Always have boys. Well, I want to call it Boys and Girls Town because it is just that, boys and girls here now. How many were 500 youngsters?
Yes.
Okay. Bryant's back in New York standing by, and we'll check out and see what's happening in the Big Apple right now.
All right, Willie, thanks very much. We're moving up on 8:10. We're back in a moment to continue our series on who killed JFK this morning. We'll look to the Cuban connection right after this.
This year, my buddies the mail carriers are helping Hallmark make you a hero. Just give your Valentine classic sweets. It's an exclusive collection of the finest chocolates. Then a few weeks later, Hallmark mails your Valentine a second box of chocolates. All for just $3.95 with any Hallmark card purchase at participating stores. So your Valentine feels special and you feel like a hero. Thanks to your dedicated mail carrier. Oh, and Hallmark. This year, go to Hallmark and give twice the love.
How lazy am I? I thought Barney here to do everything for me. In fact, I'm so lazy. When I heard MCI's friends and family plan could save me an extra 20% every time I called someone in my friends and family circle, I didn't switch. And if that's not lazy enough, when MCI said that they're starting to give $20 in free long distance if you join MCI and friends and family, I still stuck with AT&T. Well, thankfully, Barney didn't. So, he picked up the phone. I had to dial a number. In no time, we had MCI. No hassles, no restrictions, so I can call anytime I want. I gotta admit, passing up an extra 20% savings is a bit crazy. Pass up $20 in free phone calls? No one can be that lazy.
It begins at dawn. They've come for you, and they want what you have. It's your bed. You're Serta Perfect Sleeper, but it's the most comfortable spot in the house. It's why people are saying, I want my Serta.
Remember, every time you breathe out,
the winds of change are blowing.
Someone else may be breathing in
a new direction.
Try Breath Saver sugar-free mints with the core of confidence and share them.
New, spicier, carefree cinnamon gum. How long will the flavor last now? How long? Till the rivers run dry. New, spicier, carefree cinnamon. The flavor lasts.
This morning, as we continue our series, Who Killed JFK, we focus on the so-called Cuban connection. Anti-Castro Cubans in the United States certainly had a motive. They thought Kennedy was soft on communism and felt that he'd betrayed them in the Bay of Pigs fiasco. Castro himself had reason to want Kennedy out of the picture, too, because he'd heard about administration plans to hire underworld elements to assassinate him in Havana. But perhaps the most damaging indictment of Cuba's possible hand in the assassination came from Lyndon Johnson, who told close associates that he believed Castro had planned JFK's murder. Joseph Califano was a special White House assistant to LBJ. This morning he's at our NBC affiliate in Detroit, WDIV-TV. Mr. Califano, good morning.
Good morning, Bryant.
Did you ever personally hear LBJ express this belief that Castro had a hand in it?
Yes, President Johnson said to me, Kennedy tried to get Castro, but Castro got Kennedy first. There was, in addition to the mafia connection, if you will, between the administration and in attempting to assassinate Castro, there was another operation run by the government, by the CIA and the Defense Department and the State Department, which was also attempting to assassinate Castro, and that was run by something called the Interdepartmental Cuban Committee at the time, led nominally by somebody from the State Department, but in fact by Robert Kennedy. And Johnson thought that that attempt to assassinate Castro had prompted Castro to attempt to kill John Kennedy. He thought Castro was involved in the Oswald assassination.
Now, help me out on the timetable of this. LBJ knew about the administration attempts to kill Castro at the time they tried before the death, and how long after Kennedy's death did he express the opinion that it may have been the Cubans?
Well, he stopped the attempts to assassinate Castro shortly after he became president. He talked to me in late 1966. In fact, in late 1966, President Johnson thought about reopening the Warren Commission report. We even thought about groups of people we might put on. We considered people like Barry Goldwater, Father Hesburgh out at Notre Dame, and others who might form another commission, but he decided not to do that, in part because he didn't want to hurt the Kennedy family, and in part because he didn't think it was in the country's interest at the time. I think the other thing that's important to note is, at the time the Kennedy administration was trying to assassinate Castro, and I don't believe I've ever said this before, but I think that, remember that Castro sent word back. I was a young aide in the Pentagon then. Castro sent word back saying, if you don't stop trying to kill me, I'm going to kill the president.
Let me come back to you in just a moment, Mr. Califano. Let me introduce James Johnston with me here in New York. He investigated the Cuban connection for the 75 Senate Select Committee on Assassinations. Mr. Johnston, good morning.
Morning.
What kind of circumstantial evidence did you find linking the Cubans in general, Castro in particular, with the assassination?
Well, Mr. Califano was talking about this plot to kill Castro. It was led by an agent, the CIA, codenamed Amlash. He was a high-level Cuban. He wanted to lead a coup in Cuba, and he wanted to start with Castro's assassination. He told all of this to the CIA. Then Castro threatened retaliation right after this meeting.
He told this to the CIA, and he was looking for some kind of a signal that the CIA bought. You contend the signal came in a speech on the 18th, correct?
That's correct.
Let's take a look at that speech where JFK is speaking to some exiles, and this speech is in Florida.
It is important to restate what now divides Cuba from my country and from the other countries of this hemisphere. It is the fact that a small band of conspirators has stripped the Cuban people of their freedom. Once this barrier is removed, we will be ready and anxious to work with the Cuban people in pursuit of those progressive goals.
Okay, the trigger there was supposedly once this barrier is removed.
That's correct.
So they thought Amlash was going to do away with Castro.
That's correct.
But in fact, Amlash was what, a double agent?
He may have been. The CIA called him. What he wanted was proof that Kennedy was behind it, and he wanted weapons. And they called him up and said that meeting's going to be on November 22nd. They met with him, gave him a copy of the New York Times text of that speech, said, we wrote it, here's a poison pen to use for your self-defense, and we're going to get you rifles with telescopic sights. After the meeting broke up, they heard Kennedy was assassinated.
But the CIA was duped, do you think?
They may well have been. They may well have been.
If we accept all of this and the Cuban connection and Amlash and everything else, how do Oswald, Ruby fit into the scenario?
Well, Oswald's conduct becomes much more suspicious. He made this trip to Mexico City and spent 2 or 3 days there, but the Warren Commission could only account for about a day of his time when he was trying to get a visa to go to Cuba. Then he came back, moved his family from New Orleans to Dallas, lived apart from them, and then right after this Kennedy speech, Oswald went home and got his rifle where his wife was living and took it to the book depository. So he took no overt act to kill Kennedy until after the CIA had signaled to Amlash that they were ready to go.
Okay, that doesn't bring in Jack Ruby at all. Help me.
Jack Ruby, we didn't look at that because you don't know whether his story was true. It doesn't help you find out what Oswald was going through Oswald's mind. He may have been to silence Oswald.
And one of the bizarre things is in your investigation, you actually found another assassin who never fired, but who fit the personality portrait of Oswald, who was supposed to do the deed 2 days earlier?
He was supposed to do the deed in Tampa when Kennedy appeared there, but when Kennedy was in Tampa on November 18th, the signal hadn't been given to Amlash that the CIA was going to go with him.
Do you personally... I know you've got this massive body of evidence that leads you to believe it, but do you personally believe it?
I don't think anyone can ever know it with certainty. I mean, we don't have a provable case here. We have a high suspicion is what we have, and I think that's what President Johnson had.
Mr. Califano, if LBJ, as president, truly suspected the Cubans of their involvement in this and had some circumstantial evidence, why didn't he further pursue it? Why didn't he target Castro in particular or the Cubans who he may have suspected?
Well, I think he was so convinced that this was true, incidentally, that he asked the FBI for special protection for himself and his family because he thought Castro might attempt to assassinate him or his wife or children. Why didn't he pursue it? As I set out, I think, clearly in my book on Johnson, The Triumph and Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson, he was concerned about reopening this whole thing for the Kennedy family. He was concerned about reopening it for the country. I think now, incidentally, that we really should open every single file there is, including all these CIA files on our attempts to eliminate Castro, and try and get as much as we can to the bottom of it.
Well, Mr. Johnston, you're one of the few people on this earth who has seen all of those files. Anything in them to suggest a smoking gun, a second gun?
Let me say, I don't think anyone's seen all those files. I think Mr. Johnson's one of the most well-informed people, but I don't think anyone has seen all those files because I don't think anyone really understands what went on in 1963 inside the government.
We tried to see all the files. I mean, they may have been withheld or there may not be files, but the files we did see, there's no smoking gun there. It's going to basically tell the same story that the Warren Commission told. I think maybe if they're ever released, there'll be far more suspicions of a foreign conspiracy.
Gentlemen, as I thank you both, I'd also like to thank officials at the JFK Assassination Center in Dallas who have helped us throughout this series and lent us this model of Dealey Plaza and several other items. We are enormously grateful. Tomorrow morning, we're going to conclude our series on Who Killed JFK with the man who touched off all the current controversy, filmmaker Oliver Stone. Mr. Johnston, again, thank you. Mr. Califano in Detroit, thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
It's coming up on 8:21. We're back in a moment, right after this.
To a world that's not always as gentle as you'd like it to be, Johnson's Baby introduces a new generation of gentleness. New Johnson's Baby Shampoo with a richer, gentler lather that leaves delicate hair even softer and more manageable. The new generation of gentleness from Johnson's Baby. Because your baby's world should be as gentle as you can make it.